area of South Fifth Street where I live
Mm-hmm.
is a little sort of part of Indiana that is not part of the borough. So it's the line, uh, boundary line of the borough and White Township is Grandview Avenue,
Mm-hmm.
and we're just over that line.
Right.
Okay. Now, for one thing, that is what encourages developers that have come in and built all the student housing. When I bought my house, this was just family neighborhoods.
Right.
Since that time, and I bought the house in 1998, all of this has come in, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And by and large, I have to say that we are not really inconvenienced in any way by students living around us. It's generally quiet and perfectly acceptable, but on these particular days, it's not.
Right.
And I don't know what's going on. I don't have enough, I don't know who all these people are. I don't know if they're IUP students.
Right.
There's no way I could know. But
Right.
On that one property, which is adjacent to ours, this year, there were between 2,000 and 3,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
It was an angry mob, and it spilled over onto our property. And there's a neighbor of mine, an older lady whose property I kind of take care of, and she lets me kind of extend my gardens into her backyard, and so
Mm-hmm.
I'm watchful of that area too. And they just completely violated those properties. They actually broke glass doors on her shed.
Oh my God.
Did real damage this year. What happened this year, I'm talking about 2016,
Mm-hmm.
is that my wife and I, who are both professional string players, were here in Cogswell because we had a string festival going on, and we were here pretty much all day. My daughter, who plays the violin, was supposed to come with us, but she was sick, and we were kind of, it was not an easy decision to leave her home. She wanted to stay home, but I didn't feel good about it, knowing what was going to be going on outside.
Mm-hmm.
But she just kind of spent the day peering out the window and saw what was going on. Now, we had set up barriers around our property, and signs and private property,
Mm-hmm.
don't come in here and so on. They were completely trampled down and trashed. She saw, people, uprooting plants in our garden beds. Can I say
Right.
it? They were relieving themselves on our lawn.
Oh my goodness.
We came home, and by the time we came home, of course, they had been dispersed by the state police.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the weird part of it. If they were in the borough, of course, borough ordinances would require that the crowd be dispersed right away. But
Right.
they go here, I think, because whoever's in charge of this knows that it's White Township and that there is no zoning ordinance, and that the borough police won't follow them there.
Mm-hmm.
They sit on the other side of Grandview and watch, and it's supposed to be state police that offer us protection from this
Right.
kind of thing. The state police, for some reason or other, seem to think they have to sit and watch this for 2.5 to 3 hours before they will do anything about the crowd, which was what they did. So, I had snuck home just to see my daughter and grab a little lunch very quickly. I was home for about 15 minutes. At noon, I saw the crowd was already on the yard next door, and they were starting to spill over, but I didn't see much more at that point. My daughter told me that, by a half hour after I left, they were all over the place. The crowd was not dispersed till 3:30 p.m. So the state police were watching it. Obviously, they were all around. Saw the cars everywhere, but they didn't do anything for 3 hours.
Right.
And that part I don't understand. But more than that, I don't understand why, who are the people who are
Charge or put it together.
getting
or
this to happen somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, it must be a Facebook
Twitter.
type or social media, which I'm too old. I don't do
Yeah.
that stuff.
It's okay.
But there's something going on here which is a little bit out of my reckoning, and
Mhm.
the hard part is feeling like whatever I do, it's not going to stop it. And I'm too much of a good citizen to get a gun and start shooting at people. I wouldn't do that. It's not worth it. But on the other hand, I don't want 2,000 people coming in my backyard and doing stuff that really, shouldn't be done. And and that's what I have to say. It's basically holding people in a neighborhood hostage. Now we have neighbors around us who have little kids.
Yeah.
Ask yourself that. And I mean, I already, when the students moved in, this all started maybe 15 years ago that the building started. And I, my daughter was very little at the time. And she heard language, at that time that she came and asked me what some certain words meant. And I said, what am I going to say?
Right.
This is serious stuff. And so I think students really need, just generally, to be more careful about the fact that they don't live in an area which is all students. They live in a neighborhood which includes families, which includes people who have children, who want quiet time, who maybe have to get up early in the morning and go to work and this kind of stuff. And that there needs to be some acknowledgement of that.
Right.
And then whatever's going on with these parties, this has only been in the past 2 or 3 years that this has happened. I haven't seen it. And I have no problem with the normal type of parties that people have, and they have graduation parties or just, blowing off steam type parties. If there are 8 people living in the house, you'd expect maybe 25 or 30 people to come over and have a good time. We're talking about 3,000 people on this lawn. That's different. That is frightening. And to feel like it's going to happen no matter what you do, is... My house, I chose where I lived because I could walk to work, because I wouldn't have long commutes, because I wanted to be in the community where I teach, and so on. And now, I'm kind of stuck in a place where only twice a year, it's basically you're fearful of your life and safety, and certainly your property is going to get damaged by people who I don't even know if they're coming from other parts of the state, and they just find out about this party and they think they can just swoop in and do stuff like this and leave without any consequences. I'm hopeful that the township and the borough and the state police can put their heads together and come up with some problem. And I wish that we would be recognized, the fact that this little enclave is in danger because it's outside the normal protection that the borough gives.
Right.
And there's, and I think there are 3 or 4 more such, almost would call them islands. Because a township like White Township is basically the rural area surrounding the city. But, as Indiana has grown, right, it spreads out. The hillside we live on was an apple orchard once.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I moved in, some of the trees, apples and pears, were still there.
Oh, that's cool.
It's old. I mean, they were very old trees, but obviously it was rural.
Yeah.
And now it's not. Now it's a residential neighborhood, and it really should have the same protections that the borough provides to the residential neighborhoods that are within the borough.
Now, let me ask you this. I asked Professor Mills, the pen said that during IUPatty's, the party was a big party, but there were small problems. And he said that wasn't true. He said that it was good PR work. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. What I noticed was that there was a real strong effort on the part of the borough of Indiana to make sure that inside the borough, things of a really dangerous nature didn't happen, and they were controlling that. And that's great. They should be doing that. But what about us?
Exactly.
Here we are part of this community too, but because we happen to live across this boundary line, there, and that, that's where, if there's a intentional or unintentional bit of false PR, that's what it's about. See, because they're talking about the borough and they just completely ignore. I think I remember from 2015, the sheriff, saying, well, or the chief of police, maybe it was of Indiana, saying, well, there were very few problems, and there was just that one area, but that wasn't in the borough, so it's not our problem.
Right.
You see?
Yeah.
And so I would ask, whose problem is it? It's definitely my problem right now.
Because you live there.
Because I live there.
Right.
But You know, I pay my taxes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a good citizen. Maybe, you know, somebody ought to think about the people that live in this area and deserve the same protections that, you know, they provide to people who happen to live inside Grandview Avenue.
Right.
It's
Yeah. Okay. Can't stop it. Can you describe that incident with the shovel in 2015 IUPatties, was it?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was out there with the shovel,
Mm-hmm.
doing what you do with the shovel, digging in my garden.
Right.
You know, and these people kept walking into my yard, and I'll just say it right out, they were unzipping and peeing on my gardens and on my compost piles.
Wow.
And this one guy, I said, you know, this is my property, please get off, you know, I don't care, you know, you need to find some place else to do that. He just stuck his tongue out at me, turned around and peed, and I whacked him on the behind with the shovel. I was immediately assaulted with a hail of, you know, beer cans and stuff that was thrown at me.
That's sad.
So, but that's what it is.